The dead garden tour does continue into here. Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. We're gonna do a garden tour today, and it's very raw and very real and oddly very, very okay with me. So this year I really needed it to be a good tomato year. The last couple years that I've grown tomatoes have just come with a lot of sickness for the plants and myself, really. A lot of pest pressure, and along with that, just not a lot of harvest. And so I just needed this to be a good tomato year. And so you might be looking at this tomato plant next to me thinking, oh no, Heather, you had another bad tomato year. No, I did not. I am so grateful for the year that we've had for tomatoes. And I'm kicking myself a little bit for not showing you the garden every single week, because I feel like you guys have missed out on a lot of the peak production of the plants. This poor thing. We'll talk about it in just a second. But my tomato season this year was fast and furious. I have a year's worth of salsa put up. I have almost a year's worth of tomato sauce put up. Some of these plants are still producing a little bit, so we'll probably get our canning goals fully met this year, which is great. I really can't complain about that. Yes, a lot of the annual things in the garden are dead at this point, and we're just at the end of July. But honestly, that's okay. And when I noticed that this plant was starting to die just as it was starting to produce fruit, I told my husband, you know what? I'm actually kind of glad that the tomato plants are dying right now, because I know what a very healthy and very productive tomato plant can do. And there's this feeling when you grow your own food to do well by what you've grown, by not wasting it. And so if you've got a plant that's just pumping out the fruit, or you've got a lot of plants that are just pumping out lots of fruit, there can be a lot of pressure inside to make sure you don't waste it and you do everything you can with that fruit. And I did that a couple of years ago, and I got really burnt out on tomatoes. And so I was happy, because I know that these plants are really good at what they do. And I knew that because they were on their way out, I wasn't gonna experience a lot of overwhelm. And that's true, and that's good. So this is what this looks like, and we'll touch on this more in just a minute, but I think we'll start at the beginning of the garden again, because this is what this wild and crazy arch looks like right now. You'll notice that I do have some fencing and buckets and things stored in here. This is here for a reason. My lovely livestock guardian dog got hot this week. So a little bit of a backstory. Our area has been experiencing a lot of rain. It's one of the reasons that my tomato plants are just done for at this point. It's been super hot, days above 100 in the feels like temperature, but almost every day we're getting a pop-up rain shower for the past couple weeks. Like 12 out of the 14 days we've had rain. So our livestock guardian, he normally will dig in the dirt to get to a cool spot, but because of all the rain, at ground level it's basically mud. So up in the bed it's nice and cushy. And so he dug a spot, and for a couple days it was fine until he started to kind of try to dig up near my maypops, and I really don't want him digging up my maypops, so I did have to kick him out of the bed. And honestly, at the time, this was the easiest way to do it, the fastest way to do it. I just stuck down some fencing and some buckets where he had been laying, and he doesn't get in here anymore, and the plants are okay. And there he is. Hi, sir. Hi, sir. It has finally stopped raining, so there's plenty of places to dig. So don't worry about him. He's got plenty of cool spots to lay, and he is allowed to come inside. He just usually doesn't want to. So the maypops that I didn't want the dog to dig up, they have been flowering. This is the Passiflora incarnata, the American passion fruit, and we have had some flowers. It looks like there's no blooms open right now. I have a picture of one though, with a lovely bumblebee in it. They're gorgeous, these blooms. Absolutely amazing. I don't understand how this kind of thing is possible, but it's really cool to have native here in the US and be able to look at all the time. The thing that I'm noticing though is that I'm wondering if Passiflora incarnata is not self-pollinating, because I believe it's just this one plant that's been flowering. I do have two here. One of them is a little bit smaller. It got shaded out by my volunteer sunflowers up here. But I am noticing everywhere that did have a passion flower does not have a passion fruit. There's nothing on the end here. So See that? We've just got a flower stem and no fruit. And I've seen the bees on the flowers, so I know that pollination is happening. But I'm guessing the flowers are not self-pollinating. So we may not actually get fruit this year, which is fine because I didn't expect fruit this year. I was actually quite surprised to see how big this vine got. It's actually grown way up over here, and it's entangling with some of these cherry tomatoes. This is fine. I think in subsequent and future years, I am just gonna have passion flower growing along this tunnel. Really, the ultimate goal for this particular space is to have everything in here be perennial, and I'm working on it year by year. Last year, I put in grapes, and we're gonna be looking at those too, and this year, I'm somewhat focusing on the passion fruit, and we'll finish this tunnel next year for sure. But yes, the sunflowers that volunteered here are all gone by. The birds have been coming through and getting what they can. I am just gonna leave these here. My Luffa gourd is kind of starting to grow in among them, and so I want it to not get damaged. I don't know if you can see the bee through that flower. I know, sweetheart. Keep going for it. So there's honeybees out here this morning. It looks like they are gathering pollen from these lovely plants. I've got a lot of male flowers out. I did have one female flower, but it didn't get pollinated. Luffa can take a long time to get going. It can take a long time to start growing really well. It really likes the heat. And then once the flowers come on, it can take a while for the female flowers to show up. Now, sometimes if you're getting a lot of male flowers and not a lot of female flowers, it can point to a fertilization issue where you might need some phosphorus in your soil. That is not the case with something like Luffa, at least from my experience. It just does this, and it takes a second to get going. But we'll have Luffa. Probably the next time I show you this, we'll have more of the female flowers showing up. But yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be easy to see. The Luffa is growing up over the archway, but it's also at the tippy top of these sunflowers. Everything bright green that you see is actually Luffa. See this here? That's Luffa. So we're gonna leave it. And all the way down here, this is Luffa. I may try to redirect this. I don't know, we'll see what it does. On this side of the archway, I have a lot of volunteer yellow currant tomatoes. They're definitely in full production mode right now. Definitely some disease, and these particular plants looks like they fell over in a storm that we had. I had secured them to the trellis about this far up, and then they've since fallen over, but they're resilient. They're still trying to grow upwards towards the sun. I have a couple passion fruit plants that I started from seed that really do need to go into the ground at this point. And so what I'll probably do is take out some of these tomato plants and stick them here. This type of thing is growing wild all over the homestead, so we can do without a couple of plants. It's okay. The blackberries, my wild and crazy blackberry patch, these are doing their thing quite well. We're actually pretty much towards the end of blackberry season. I do still have some ripe berries. You can see right here. We're just really getting snacking quantities at this point, not a lot of preserving quantities. The blackberry patch is another one of those things that has me kind of regretting not showing you the garden weekly, because I think we missed peak season on the camera for these things, but we did get a lot of harvest out of those. Over here, I have my green stock that I used to have micro dwarf tomatoes in. I had a lot of different types, and those guys were the first to get bugs and disease this year, so they were the first to die and get ripped out. And I've since replaced them with a succession of beans. These are the Kalima bush beans, and they're doing well. Now I have my friend here on a stick. I did notice when I had overplanted these cells with beans that some of the beans were getting plucked out by birds. And when I stuck my owl on a stick over here, that stopped. And these guys are looking really well. Now, I am not fantastic at growing in green stalks. I do try. I have several green stalks. And one of the things that I have noticed this summer in particular, I talked about how much rain we got. Well, when I went to take out these plants to put in the beans, I was very surprised how very dry this soil was. It should not have been dry with all the rain that we've gotten. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the shape and size of the pockets, but even then, we got these little rain gauges that have, you know, nothing for an opening, and they get plenty of rain in them. I don't know what it is, but I still have to water no matter if we're getting rainfall. So let's do that before I forget today. It's gonna be another hot one. gracious, sorry. Can you hear it doing its thing? I'm not sure if I showed you close up what's happening with these flowers over here. These are the Peruviana zinnia, and I really like growing them. They are so pretty. They don't smell like anything. I need to come through and deadhead, but I've been saying that this year with things, and I haven't yet this year. But we've got a couple flowers here that are definitely gone by, and these guys are good for seed. With zinnia, it can be a little bit difficult to tell where the seeds are. Actually, with a lot of plants, it can be pretty difficult to tell where the seeds are. But in the center, right here, is where we had the yellow portion. And actually, on the ends of the petals are where the seeds are, at least on this variety. So we've got these dry petals all on the outside, and those are the seeds right there. When I had first started saving my own zinnia seeds, I assumed that these little bits in the middle were the seeds, and there are some, it's a little bit hard to tell what's what. There are some seeds in the middle. There's also a lot of what's called chaff, just parts of the plant that are not the seed, the very dead parts of the plant. But the most reliable and most obvious seed are on the petals. And with just a few flowers, you can have tons and tons of seed and not have to worry about trying to figure out what's what in the middle of the plant. Over here is another tomato row, and there's actually quite a lot going on in here. There are some volunteer zinnia that we had. Look, this one's candy cane zinnia. I'm glad to see that one come through. I love that variety. But yeah, we've got some tomatoes. A lot of them on this side are just not doing well, quite pitiful. This is a volunteer ground cherry plant, and so we're getting some garden snacks out of that. So that's nice. As these things ultimately die, some of the things that I actually didn't intentionally plant but are beautiful and useful will overtake this space. And so I like that. But as you can see, the tomatoes are definitely gone by. We do have a few straggling fruits, which as the foliage is starting to die back on these plants, a lot of the fruit is starting to get sunburned. And really the sunburned fruits are quite unusable. They almost bake. It's very strange. I've probably got a few to show you. Yeah, down here. This is sunburn, and in the middle of the day, this is almost swollen and blistered, and it's tough and just not good. So I guess I could probably bring it in and save half of the fruit if I needed to, but I don't feel like I need to. I have gotten a lot of harvest from good fruits, so we'll just feed that to the earthworms. This particular aisle of the garden has been like butterfly central. I do still have a little bit of Kelway golden chamomile flowering over here. This needs a lot of attention, and to be honest, I probably won't give these beds a lot of attention for another couple of months. I do have this pepper plant that I had forgotten about earlier in the year, and it does have a little bell pepper on down here. So there's that. But my oregano has been flowering. I intend to collect some of these flowers for tea, but the butterflies have just been adoring it over here, and so I've been leaving them for now. And we have seen quite a few hummingbirds on the zinnia flowers. All of these zinnia were volunteers. I think I mentioned it earlier in the year, but I have been growing zinnia ever since I've been growing a garden here. So this is my 6th year growing a garden, and I haven't ever had a volunteer zinnia until this year, and there's a bunch of them. I don't know why this year, but I'll take it. We have the candy cane zinnia over there. This one is beautiful, cream color. We have a red and a pink. And really with things like flowers, the more you harvest, the more they bloom. And you can get an example of that down here. Down here is where I snapped off a flower for a bouquet, and the plant has responded by putting out 2 more side shoots. And guess what? These side shoots have buds on them. And if and when I pluck these for bouquets, they'll put out even more side shoots. And you'll just get more and more blooms on a bushier plant, which is really fun. I like growing flowers. As you can see, the tomatoes over here are basically all done, but there's some beauty in here as well. These dill plants over here have been dead, but they've done their job. We've got all this lovely seed on here, and what I would love for them to do is reseed and come back. That is the hope for this space. We might even be able to get some fall and winter dill out of here. We'll have to see. There's not a lot of light going on down there, but it's possible. In the very least, we'll have some dill next year. That's for sure. So on to the grapes. These guys are Carlos Muscadine grapes. They are green and they ripen to a greeny yellow, and they do have some little grapes on them. We are still, I think, about 6 weeks away from them really starting to ripen. They're more of a fall harvest, but there's 2 plants here and they are positively loaded down with fruit. So it's really great to see. See them all up there. I'm really excited about this, you guys. I have this really cool plant that is sprawling like crazy. This is a volunteer squash, and I'm pretty sure it's a pumpkin. You can see this lovely male flower down here. Behind it, there is what looks to be a pumpkin sitting here down in the grass. So we're gonna leave that. That's the only pumpkin I've seen on this vine, but it's quite large, and I imagine there's more. Right now the pumpkin is just sprawling along, and as it does so, it's going to be putting down roots, and this is going to help feed the plant in the hot heat of the summer. And so I'm going to allow it. It's all the way out here. It's going to go way out there. And really, honestly, truly, at this point, when a lot of the things in the garden have just gone by, but the things that I did not intentionally plant are starting to take over, and it's just keeping the life up. And it's lovely. So it's come out over my strawberry bed, which you can't even see any strawberry plants in here at this point. They're there. This is a sad situation, but I do have plans to remedy that this coming fall. The remedy of this situation may not come until early spring. I'll have to see what's the best time to transplant strawberries. It may not be the best time in fall. This wild mess is mostly asparagus fronds. This is just what they do this time of year. They're collecting the sunlight and getting ready to store it down in the crown. But I do have a pumpkin vine that's come up through here, and we'll weigh some of these down, but it'll be okay. The pumpkin is actually coming out over here as well. See it here? This is just one plant. It starts somewhere over there, and it's sprawling out that way, and it's coming out this way, and it's even trying to grow up over that way. I really feel like there must be another pumpkin hidden in here somewhere, but I don't want to meddle too much. My elderberry plants have been pretty laden down with fruit. I've come through and gotten off quite a few clusters and stuck them in the freezer. I may be at the point right now where I will leave the rest for the birds. But anyways, we've gotten what we needed off of our elderberry plant. We've got a lot of elderflower cordial put away. I've got a lot of the berries put in the freezer, and I plan to actually make a jelly from the juice this year. But really interesting thing, I don't think I've ever seen my elderberry plant do this. It usually blooms all at one time, and it's putting on some different blooms at this time of year. Really interesting. See, there's little baby buds here. I guess I won't question it. This bed does have potatoes in it. It looks like a weed bed right now. It's been raining so much that I feel like I haven't been able to harvest the potatoes. They say it's better to harvest your potatoes when the ground is a little bit drier, just because the skins on the potatoes are going to be delicate if there's a lot of moisture. And if we break the skins of the potatoes before they've had a chance to cure and get tough, that just can introduce things that can make the potato go bad sooner. Now, you also do need to get them out of the ground at a certain point, or they could potentially go bad. What I'm actually thinking about doing with this space is leaving it for now, weeding it at the end of the season, mulching it at the end of the season, and seeing if we happen to get more potatoes in this space next year. That might genuinely be what I do with this bed. We'll see. A lot of the times when I'm filming garden tours or any other video, I tend to say the thing that is ideal, but then also follow up with what is probably realistic. So that's what that was. So something neat that's gone on over here that I have not seen happen before in my garden is I saw a flash of red, and I immediately thought, okay, so we got a Super Sweet 100 or some other tomato volunteering over here. Now, if you follow my weekly vlogs, you probably have an idea of what's going on over here. So I went in there just to see what I could be looking at, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see a plant that looked exactly like the yellow currant tomato that volunteers on my property every year. That is what this guy is right here, except it's red. So I picked off a couple of fruit and I gave it a taste test. and it tastes a lot like that yellow currant tomato, except it does have, there's like a, how do I describe it? Besides saying a red tomato flavor, it is a lot more rich, a lot less sweet, not a lot more umami, because that's one of the things that I've really liked about this yellow currant tomato is that it does retain a lot of umami flavor that a lot of yellow tomatoes just don't. But it has a thinner skin, which a lot of red tomatoes don't necessarily have a thinner skin. It's a really, really great cross. And I don't know exactly what the yellow currant tomato crossed with. I'm guessing it was a super sweet 100 because I did grow those in this garden last year. So yeah, we got another really cool volunteer hybrid happening on our farm. And I did save some seed. This is probably not gonna be super stable, but I love this. This is really neat. I have gotten a lot of volunteer tomatoes on the property this year that are not the yellow currant, and it's been a very exciting time. I dare say I might like this better than the yellow currant. Don't tell her. Over here is an extension to the perennial garden. It's wild and crazy in some spots, but I do have some dwarf cherry trees over here which aren't doing a whole lot. We have Romeo and Juliet cherry. I ain't come up with that. That's how I bought them. My roselle plants are loving the heat, and they've loved all the rain that we've gotten, and they are very, very big. So far, no signs of buds, but I hear that's what happens. I did put some stakes sitting up vertical over here because it looked like Buster was maybe trying to dig over here as well, which isn't my favorite thing, but you know, he's doing what he feels like he needs to do. Here are my Jerusalem artichokes. Still no blooms over here either, but they should be coming. I guess we can shut the water off, huh? Oh, you know what this is? See this curliness on the leaves? This is Roundup overspray right here. Now, we love our neighbors, and I want our neighbors to do what our neighbors feel like they need to do to maintain their property. But they do spray. He tries to spray on days where the wind is not blowing towards my garden, and he does a very good job with that. This could have been him spraying his fence line, but it also could be big ag spraying. Like everywhere around us is big ag, but we do occasionally see Roundup overspray in the garden, and while it makes me sad, it never actually wipes out any bit of my garden. The plants do bounce back really well, and so I tend to not worry about it too much, but it's one of those things where I just live in the middle of it, so I kind of have to accept it. And so, but that's what that looks like to me. What I'll do is keep my eye on this, and I'll show you how this will bounce back. But yes, that is Roundup damage right there, just on that one part. Over here is where I have my Sunbelt grapes planted. These are a Concord variety, and as you can see, we've got a lot of purpling going on. Now, I have come through and picked off a few grapes and tasted them, and they are incredibly sour. So I looked that up and I was like, hang on a second. These are supposed to be some of the most delicious table grapes that there are, and these are not that. I can taste a little bit of the lovely grape flavor in the back of all the sour, and they're just not ready. These need to be a very deep purple, and right now they're just this, you know, red. I mean, they're gorgeous, but they're just this like reddish color. They do have some bounce to the fruits, but they're not ready. So I am going to continue to leave them. The plants are pretty big on this trellis, but there's not a lot of clusters. This is a plant that also went in last year. And so a lot of this growth that you see is new growth this year. And we will get grapes all along here next year. Update 2, I will say I have not noticed a lot of bird impact on these, at least not yet. So I've got some bags over some of them just in case it becomes an issue. I will still get somewhat of a harvest, but I do also want to leave some of these clusters out to see if I really have to fuss with it. One of the things about these grapes, and I will pluck one off to show you, is that they have quite the thick skin on them. These are not seedless, but that's fine. I just eat the seed. So it's good. Woo! Oof, but that's sour. But yeah, that's the skin. It's quite thick, and I think this is going to help it be bird resistant. Obviously not bird proof. There are some big birds out there, that's for sure. The skin has a better flavor. we will dip into the shed so I can show you the garden tour for the fall garden. Looky here, I have a lot of broccoli planted here, some cabbages, some purple cauliflower. I believe I planted these seeds a couple weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, and a lot of them look like they're getting ready to be potted up. See, I just pulled this one out and you can see all the roots down there. Usually you get about 1 month's worth of growth per inch of pot. And so these pots are probably 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. So probably maximum 5 or 6 weeks in these pots before they need to be moved out. Maybe even less, I don't know. These guys are developing really fast. These pots are designed well though to where they don't get root bound. You see these slits on the side? When the roots reach the side of a pot, they'll grow around looking for more space to grow, but they won't grow into where there's air. Now the reason that these are growing out is because I've had water in the trays, and so they're growing out towards the water, but that's good because what the plants are not doing is spiraling around the pot and getting root bound, which essentially suffocates the roots. So we buy these pots from Epic Gardening. They have had a sale, so hopefully the sale is still going on. I'll link it below. This grow light setup with the timer, this is on their website too. The dog thinks we have amnesia. Oh, he's correct, we do. Here's your first treat of the day, sir. The kids' garden is looking just as wild and crazy as Mama's is. I'm actually very surprised they are still harvesting cucumbers. They said that they've gotten a little bit bitter, but that they're not bad, which is crazy to me. I thought they'd be all cucumbered out by this time, but nope, they're still eating them. A lot of times cucumbers will get bitter in the heat. Something about the chemical compound, chemical makeup, cucurbitacin, that becomes more prevalent in the heat. It's like a defense mechanism of, okay, maybe don't eat me, let me produce seed. They've been growing a lot of very giant Belgian giant tomatoes. These ones are about mid-size. Probably need to come through and get these trained better to the trellis, but look at that big guy. Gorgeous big fruit right there. They do have a volunteer tomato that's growing in the grass over here. This is a Berry's Crazy Cherry that they've let go. Just like their mama, they let the volunteers do their thing, and they're going to be harvesting some cherry tomatoes from here very soon. Lots and lots of them. The kids are very good at growing Berry's Crazy Cherry. I am not. We'll go look at mine in a little bit, but at least there's this one on the farm. Look at all the flowers, and it seems to be holding up pretty well. All their tomatoes are not as diseased as mine, and I have a theory. I talked about this theory the last garden tour. Healthy soil really makes for healthy plants. Let me just put that right out there. I have been fertilizing my garden a lot with granular fertilizer, and it's been good. I like Trifecta Plus. My plants have done well on it, but it doesn't necessarily feed the soil. My kids have been basically doing 2 chores in one. They've been cleaning out underneath the rabbit cages and then bringing those buckets of rabbit manure and putting them in their garden. And rabbit manure will feed the soil as well as feeding the plants, and I feel like it's evident in how well their gardens are doing. I do very little to help them with their gardens, and to be honest, they do very little to help their gardens as well, but they're doing good. Bentley just came through and harvested quite a few peppers. He's growing a snacking pepper. Look at them all on here. Some of them are colored, so he's got an orange one. I think he may have harvested a red one. Addie's got tons of zinnia that she's been letting stay on the plant. She's enjoying seeing the pollinators and the hummingbirds as well. Look at these big tomatoes over here. Wow. Their garden is very inspiring to me. It just encourages me to not overthink it. And it inspires me to really intentionally use more of what I have here on my farm to help feed the farm. Nice circular system. So I think before we go in the greenhouse and show you an update in there, we're gonna head out on the lane. I have some things growing at the very end, and I've got a few things growing at the very beginning. Mostly cowpeas. I do have a roselle plant here, and then there's another roselle plant at the end of this little row. But mostly it's cowpeas. These guys have gotten kind of a second wind, I guess. I was a little bit worried about them. It seemed like the growth had stalled out a little bit, but I came through and I noticed that a lot of the plants were just sort of ambling along the ground, along the bags that I have them growing in, and I redirected a lot of the plants up towards the trellis. And I don't know if that's causing them to get more access to the sunlight and grow more, but they seem to have gotten a boost. And so that's really nice. You can see Nice big plant here, and we are getting some more flowers. These will flower and set pods for the whole season. So you can see we've got dry pods here. I could harvest these, and then I've got flower buds here, and then future flower buds down there. They just produce and produce. I love growing these, mostly because they're basically a set it and forget it type food, which is very nice for a busy gardener. And we can't neglect to show you the update on the pumpkins that are out here. These are all volunteer Dutch fork pie pumpkins. There's a pumpkin actually behind this seedling tray here. I blocked it off because the boy goats had started to chew on it. See that pumpkin down there? There are some squash bugs on it, probably because of the damaged fruit. I do know that this variety of pumpkin is very resistant to things like squash bugs and squash vine borers, but we'll see if the bugs get an upper hand on that variety this year. I hope not. Do you guys see all the birds perched over here? These pennant flags haven't done anything. Look at them. Woo! They're coming after me. Okay, well, listen, we gotta look at our tomatoes. Whoa, gosh. These two right here, it's probably their babies. Are you just trying to teach them how to fly? Okay, I don't want to stress you out. Oh, we'll leave them alone. I feel bad, they're trying to do their thing. I've got some tomatoes that are also dying down there. You probably don't need to see that to know what it looks like. I don't want to bother them. They're trying to be good parents. So we'll go in here where I have been doing quite a lot of work. Whew, guys. Let's go this way, because this is what the greenhouse has been looking like for a couple months at this point. Lots of overgrown weeds. I have 4 beds in here. You can't even see them. I have a walkway here you can't even see. This is what the other side of the greenhouse looked like last week, and this is what it looks like now. Ta-da! I know that crazy chaos on the other side looks like a lot, but truthfully, a lot of the weeds, they're kind of growing all from the outer edge of the bed, and then they're kind of crawling into the walkway and on top of the weed fabric, and it's been very easy to remove them and reveal the beds and the walkway and how the greenhouse is supposed to be. So I'm doing a little bit of work every day, about 45 minutes to an hour every day, trying to reclaim my greenhouse, and this feels really good to see. So you may notice one of the things that I've been doing is taking the weeds and putting them in the bed. There are seed heads that are entering the beds, and I got a couple questions about that when I showed myself weeding the garden in one of the last weekly vlogs. Heather, some of the seed heads are going in the bed. I hope you don't get weeds. I'll probably get weeds. I'm not super worried about it because I get weeds anyway. I do use some goat manure in my garden beds, and I do use hay in my garden beds, and both of those can carry seeds along with them. But truthfully, the reason that I did this and wasn't worried about trying to pick out seed heads and be real fussy with it is that would equal analysis paralysis to me, and that would make me not want to do it. And it would make me not want to do something that had to be done. So it might not be the most ideal thing, but it means that it got done. And that's how I have to operate sometimes. So what's gonna happen here is these are just gonna die and break down in the bed. I'm gonna leave them like this until it comes time to add some soil and amend these beds for fall time. I hope to have all of these beds planted by mid-September. Those little seedlings that we saw in my shed, that's what's gonna go here. And on the other side, when I can get that cleaned out. My husband and I are gonna work on this today. I have also started working on clearing out the middle. Got a lot done there, and there's still a little bit to do down here, but it's looking nice, except for the things that are dead and dying on the trellis. So the dead garden tour does continue into here. These are my lovely armpit melons, which actually are not my lovely armpit melons. I'm thinking that I planted the wrong seed. Now I did plant armpit melon, but I think I planted the wrong generation because many of these melons are not what they should be. I had some errors happen along the way on trying to stabilize this melon seed, and even the ones that are ripening orange, some of them are on this side, they don't taste like they're supposed to, and so I need to go back to the original seed that I had saved from a Kajari to see if I can bring out that armpit melon that I've been trying to work on, because I think maybe I had not gone back far enough when I planted this seed, but who knows. anything can happen. That melon that I have been growing and calling the armpit melon was a cross between a Kajari and a Charente melon. And I have seen this year especially, saving seed from the same fruit does not mean that every seed within that fruit is going to act the same. I had grown a squash plant along this trellis here from all seed that was saved from one squash, and I got 3 different, completely different looking squash, and one of them was toxic, the other 2 were not. So it's really interesting how pollination works out. So I really need to do some research on how exactly to get an accidental cross to stabilize. It's harder than I thought. But we've had some delicious melons anyway, but these guys, they're definitely on their way out, so they'll be coming out soon. Here are the passion flowers, aka maypops, that really need to go into the ground soon. It looks like they're trying to climb something, and we've got a lot of roots coming out the bottom, so I've got 2 of those. And then my friend Corey, who came to ultrasound my goats, he gave me some irises, and I've stuck them in here as well. So we've got an orange Titan iris and the moonlit sea iris. Wasn't that sweet of him? Down in here I do have lima beans, and these guys are also kind of trying to crawl or grow out into the chaos over here. I may try to train them this way just to take over where the armpit melon is dying, but we're seeing some pods on the plants now. And I may or may not start harvesting some of these pods. In the past I have had issues with rodents coming in and eating my beans straight out of the pods, and so it's helpful to get them before the rodents get them. But see how pretty they are? Gorgeous. Whoop, dropped one, dang. This is another one of those set it and forget it things for me. I feel like it won't be long before my peaches will be ripe. These are bonfire peach trees, and they are very loaded down with peaches, as you can see in here. I had put these plants in last year, and I think we got 5 peaches total. Each plant probably has 20 peaches on it this year, but I don't think they are close to ready yet. No, they're still quite hard. It was sometime in August last year that we were able to harvest the peaches. And here's my other bonfire peach tree, right there. My cucamelons had a setback from my irrigation breaking, but it does look like they are back to producing fruit. You can probably see here there's all kinds of little baby cucamelons. So happy to see that we didn't completely kill those. The cherry tomatoes are the tomatoes on my farm that are doing the best right now. We're coming through and harvesting about every 2 or 3 days. And the thing that I've been doing most with them is roasting them in the oven with some garlic and some rosemary sprigs with some olive oil and salt and pepper until the tomatoes blister a little bit, get a little bit of char, and release a lot of their juices. Then I'm just letting them cool and packing them up and putting them in the freezer as tomato confit, and it is very good to pull out and heat up and put on top of noodles. You can put it on top of something like chicken or rabbit. It's very delicious and a really great way to preserve cherry tomatoes without having to fuss with cutting them in half. All of the cherry tomatoes that are growing along this trellis were volunteer tomatoes, and they've been doing spectacularly. That's one of the things with, you know, volunteer fruit that's allowed to seed and come back regularly in a space can be more resistant to like the bug pressure, to the disease pressure for that specific area. I think it's called a land race vegetable or fruit when that happens. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's like making a fruit that's specifically adapted to your microclimate by continuing to keep back seed. And that's just happening naturally here by just the fruit falling every year and then allowing some of the plants to grow back every year. When other plants on the homestead are dying, these guys are thriving, and you know, that's encouraging to me. This is why I like to leave volunteers when and where I can. This particular variety I had actually regretted not starting seeds for this year, but it came back to see me anyway. These are called the blue cream berry, and they're very delicious. I believe this is a Wild Boar Farms variety. Really classic, sweet, and juicy yellow tomato flavor. A lot less umami than like the yellow currant tomato that I really like, but still a very good tomato. I recently harvested my stevia and did a freeze drying process on those. I cut the plants back quite a lot, but they are just pumping out more leaves. I do have a random carrot in here that you can see, but a lot of the green that you see here is more stevia. You can see I've got carrots down here too. I had harvested the carrots out of here, and then I guess some of the seeds sprouted again, so I just left it. I've not tried to grow carrots through the heat. Here's an update on our Megatron jalapenos. Still doing their thing. We're kind of in the lull between flushes. A lot of pepper plants will put on one big flush at the beginning, and then if you give them time and harvest that first initial flush, they'll put on a second flush, which usually has more flowers and more fruit. And then if your season is long enough, you can get a third flush. I've even seen in some places that peppers are perennial, which I didn't even think was a thing ever, but of course it makes sense if it never freezes there and you take good care of your plants. It's like a pepper tree, and that's incredible. Over here back on the clean side, we can finally see what's going on in this corner. This is what that corner is supposed to look like. It was real crazy for way too long. But yeah, this is where I plan to harvest some strawberry runners to repopulate my strawberry bed out in the perennial garden. So I need to do that, but maybe not while it's so hot. I'm just gonna leave them for right now. The fact that these plants are still connected to the mother plant with these vines here is good. They'll be getting their nutrition from the green stalk itself. Here's my tater pepper. This is the jalapeno and habanero cross. I do need to come out and harvest so that we do get another flush of blooms. It looks like it is still trying to put on some blooms. I have been fermenting a hot sauce with these peppers, and I need to set up another batch. The Malabar spinach volunteer is starting to reach its peak beauty. This guy loves the heat and humidity, and I love that it loves the heat and humidity. Absolutely gorgeous. And then over in here along these beds, I do have some green beans, which, oh my goodness, this is shocking me. These plants just want to produce and want to produce. These are more Kalima bush beans. They have treated me very well. I love this variety. The thing is, these plants are starting to get diseased. They have what's called rust. You can see it here. Like, you could go through and pick off all these leaves just to save these beans, but I'll tell you, it's easier to just replant beans and rip out the dead and diseased plants. You can see we've got beetle damage down here. I've seen a lot of cucumber beetles, and these beetles will obviously cause damage. They will spread disease. They won't only eat the leaves, but they will eat some of the beans. Actually, these guys don't look too bad in here. In any case, when you're dealing with a lot of disease on bean plants, these guys grow so fast and do so well that a lot of times it's just easier to replant them. So that's what I've done in the green stalk in the front garden. For now, I'm gonna leave these. These are just gonna be chopped and dropped, a lot like the weeds and things that are in here. We'll chop them and put them down in the bed, and they'll help feed the fall and winter garden. So yes, a lot in the garden is dead and dying, but I'm actually excited about it. Number one, it's allowing me to not get overwhelmed with the harvest, but number two, it's allowing me to do things in here, like clean out for the fall and winter garden, which honestly has the harvest that I love the most. We really love our brassica plants, and that's the whole reason we have this greenhouse, is to grow brassicas. So the dead and dying plants in here are allowing me a lot of time to take my time to reset this space for the fall and winter garden, and you know what, I actually appreciate it. So yeah, that's what things look like right now. Hopefully things are growing well wherever you are, and if they're not, hopefully that's not bothering you too much. Try to see the silver lining in things. Maybe it's allowing you a little bit of time to do something else, even if that's just relax a little bit.